Hello and welcome back to On the Workbench. Today we're going to be doing the tier list meme with tools. So I've got a variety of tool manufacturers here on the right. And so we're placing these into tiers, starting with the traditional A through F with the S tier at the very top. If you're not familiar with these, check around the internet and you can see plenty of these memes going around. So I thought we'd jump on the bandwagon here just for fun because I thought some of you guys might find this interesting. I know some of you guys might get offended by what I say about your favorite tool companies. This is just for commentary and just for fun. If you want to fight about it in the comments section below, go right ahead, have some fun. This is just my opinions and thoughts and just free thinking off the top of my head. So let's get started here and let's go for a couple of tools companies here. As you can see, my basic criteria for inclusion was the tool company had to basically either sell a saw or a ratchet under their own branding. I know I don't have all the tool companies here, but I've got a preponderance of them. So let's start out here. Let's see, what's one that looks easy to place? How about Cornwell? Let's go with Cornwell Tools. Cornwell is sold on trucks primarily to automotive mechanics. They're based out of Ohio. They're an American company. However, it seems like if you looked at any Cornwell products lately, they're almost all just rebrands of other companies' products. A lot more stuff being made in Taiwan. I don't know. I think I'm going to put this down here towards an E tier. I think at one point they made a lot better tools than what they have today, but they're outsourcing so much stuff now. You don't know if you're getting Cornwell tools or not. Maybe we'll actually bump them up to maybe a D tier because their product names actually are fairly descriptive of what of who the manufacturer is. Let's go over and take a look at Matco. Matco also suited for automotive mechanics. And now I think Matco probably belongs in about the same space as Cornwell. Matco, I'm not sure they actually or maybe even slightly lower than Cornwell. I'm not even sure Matco actually manufactured anything themselves. I'm pretty sure everything they sell is manufactured by somebody else. And I'm not sure they've really got any products that are truly unique to them. And I'm only going to give Cornwell just a bit of an edge because I know Cornwell, I think they make at least some of their ratchets and sockets, but I don't think Matco makes anything. If I'm wrong, please make a comment below. So we'll slot them there, maybe just between D and E tier. Let's take a look at, if we're sticking with mechanics tools, let's look at Snap-on, the granddaddy of them all. I know initially kind of want to put them up here in the S tier. They do manufacture a lot of their own products. They manufacture a lot of them in the USA, so I think that definitely puts them above Cornwell and Matco. However, Snap-on has been known to put a lot of young mechanics into debt, as well as they don't always have the best reputation for treating their dealers the fairest, but they do actually have some pretty good tools. So I'm going to put them somewhere in here. Definitely not an S tier, but probably somewhere between an A and a B tier. Let's see, in the automotive mechanic world, we also have Gearwrench. Gearwrench predominantly made in Taiwan, and Gearwrench is a product of the Apex Tool Group and has replaced a lot of other bits of branding. And you get quite a good value for the money. It's foreign made. They don't hide the fact that they're foreign made, which is at least truth in advertising. And you can get some pretty good value out of them. So I'm going to put them here, just below Snap-on. I think that's being pretty generous. They've got a wide range of products and not too shabby. How about Mac Tools? Mac Tools, also sold on tool trucks to mechanics like Cornwell, Matco, and Snap-on. Mac is the tool truck brand of Stanley Black & Decker. They've got some pretty unique pneumatic tools right now. Their battery tools are compatible to DeWalt 20-volt max tools, so I think that actually gives them an edge in the power tool market. Still pretty heavy in debt. Some of their Maximizer toolboxes are kind of interesting. I don't think they really try to hide their origin, and at least because of their connection with Stanley Black & Decker, they do manufacture some of their own products. So I think we'll put them probably here in the C tier. Now, as a sister to them, the industrial brand Proto is very similar to a lot of the Mac tools, but you can get quite a good value for basically the same Mac tool, but with Proto branding and slightly different colors. If you look at some of their hammers and pneumatic tools, that definitely puts them up because of their value proposition above Mac tools. Look at some of their screwdrivers, definitely a great value. Let's see if we're going to stay with mechanics tools. I think another one here is SK. Now, SK is made in America. They're an American-owned company. I think almost all their tools are made in America. They were rescued out of bankruptcy. They're owned by, I believe they're owned by Ideal. You get quite a good value. They're made in the USA. They're not trying to put people into an incredible amount of debt. And I think I'm actually going to put them all the way at the top. I think you get quite a good value with SK tools. They're made in the USA. They're a quality product, and SK isn't trying to do anything mischievous with dealers. They're trying to put people into debt, but you can actually buy American-made tools and not have to spend the crazy amount that Snap-on has. Now, Snap-on does have some great tools. I've got to give them that. But SK, when you throw in that value proposition, I think they rise towards the top. Let's look at Napa. Napa has their Carlisle brand of tools. You know, they're basically just rebrands of other tools. They don't actually manufacture tools. They just rebrand them and maybe price them up a little bit higher. So I would place them with Gearwrench, but we'll put them right down here. It's basically Gearwrench quality, but with higher prices. So I think we've got to slot them down. We'll put them down here. Okay, and then... So then now to kind of bridge the gaps in the other tools here, we've got, actually, let's look at Milwaukee. Milwaukee has really been the big player lately in lithium-ion battery technology and getting rid of pneumatic tools. They offer quite the great value proposition. They have quite the selection of tools, a lot of very interesting specialty tools that you're never going to own all the 18 volt or all the 12 volt tools that Milwaukee has, because some of them are super specialized, which I've got to give them credit for going into some niche markets. Now, unlike their name, they're not domestically made. I'm not sure any of their tools are domestically made, but I believe they've got a decent presence up in Wisconsin with some of their products. And they're getting into some of the hand tools. They got some really innovative tool storage products out. So we'll put them... I think we'll put them right about here, above Proto. I think that's fair. Let's look at Milwaukee's biggest competitor. Let's take a look at DeWalt. Oh, sorry, that moved. Put that back. Let's take a look at DeWalt. So DeWalt has quite the range of their 20 volt max tools. They had their 18 volt tools before that. And there's about the same as Milwaukee. There's some pretty good value there. It's a different platform. Their batteries are interchangeable with some of the Mac tool batteries, which is gives them some credit. I think I actually need to knock them back a little behind Milwaukee, because Milwaukee's got a much more complete line of tools. So we'll put DeWalt somewhere in line with Proto. The Proto tools are made by the same company. They're really the same company. Proto tools are probably generally just slightly better than DeWalt, but DeWalt has quite the range of power tools. So we'll put them side by side squarely in the B tier. Let's take a look at the next in line. If you look at the Home Depot companies of Rigid, I guess in that company, Rigid is owned by Emerson Electric. They've got quite a great line of shop vacs. They've got quite the line of 18 volt power tools, a lot of lighting solutions that are interesting. Definitely not a Milwaukee or a DeWalt, but there's quite a good value proposition that you get with Rigid. And so it's hard for me to really knock them any far below the B tier, simply because of their value proposition. I know not everyone's going to agree with that, but I think that's fair. Now let's take a look at Cobalt. Cobalt is the store brand of Lowe's. Now, they used to be all over Lowe's, and with a walk-in warranty anywhere where you can find a Lowe's, but with the advent of Craftsman coming into Lowe's, I think we've got to knock Cobalt back a bit. You know, a lot of their tools are very similar to some of the Napa tools, but given that I think there's going to be some warranty concerns, going forward with Cobalt tools for replacements that unfortunately is going to knock them back. They've got some pretty good tool storage solutions. And now for their replacement, Craftsman. At one point, I think Craftsman, which doesn't really manufacture anything, but now is owned by Stanley Black & Decker. They're coming back. I think they used to be up here when Craftsman was a Sears brand, and their warranty allowed you to replace their tools at just about any Sears in America. But perhaps because there was too many Sears in America, that's why Sears kind of went for the most part under. But because of the ubiquity of the Craftsman brand, Stanley Black & Decker is putting some new designs in place there. And so I think I'm going to put them, I think they have to go above Cobalt, but they're definitely not DeWalt. And you can see where Stanley Black & Decker has tried to purposely slot them behind DeWalt, but their value proposition for what you get with their, I believe they call it their V20 tools, and their hand tool selection is pretty good. You know, I'm going to put them in the C tier here, I think. But I think if with the right bit of management strategy, they could easily move up simply because of the value proposition. Now, perhaps for an analog over at the Home Depot, you've got Ryobi. And Ryobi, back when they had their blue tools, belonged squarely down at the bottom of the list. I'm not sure they actually belong at the bottom of the list anymore. Their lime green tools have shown quite the improvement over their blue tools. Their garage door opener product very specifically is very intriguing for what that offers. And I think we're going to put that probably somewhere in here. Up and coming, they've got a lot of specialty tools. Maybe we can put them as on the same line as Craftsman. Their value proposition is almost unmatched. And so I think that certainly belongs there. Let's take a look at Works. Works has a limited selection of 20-volt tools. They've got a very interesting circular saw that tries to mimic what you can do as a precision crosscut saw. That's interesting, but just their limited tool selection. But they are very innovative. They've got a 20-volt power washer, if you will. I'm not sure the reviews have shown that to be very good, but I like their innovative strategy for where they're trying to go with the brand. They're not there yet, but we're going to put them here. I think there's some potential for where they could be coming up in the future if that brand is managed correctly. Let's take a look at Bosch. Blue Bosch. I know Europe has some green Bosch tools. Bosch tools don't seem to get as much love around YouTube or the internet as they probably should. There's some quality tools. They just had some crazy rebranding on the names of their tools, of the freak, if you will, for the combination impact wrench and impact driver. And they've got a decent selection and growing. I think in terms of bang for the buck, they're not quite on par with Rigid, but they're a professional quality like DeWalt. They had a really innovative cordless charging solution, and they're trying some interesting products. I think we're going to put them here in the B tier. I think they could definitely have room for improvement. Some of their hand tools and specialty bits are pretty well thought out, so we've got to give them credit for that. And let's take a look at Black & Decker. So Black & Decker covers just about everything. You could buy a Black & Decker microwave, a Black & Decker vacuum, outdoor power equipment, and drills that all run on the same battery. Okay, their microwave doesn't, but their outdoor power equipment. So I've got to give them a lot of credit for that. You can see a lot of their designs kind of bleeding over into other products. They got a pretty good value proposition, but they're definitely a budget-end tool. But you can find them all over the place. And I think they're probably a D tier. I think that's probably fair. Okay, continuing on after Black & Decker, let's take a look at Hilti. Hilti is actually based in Liechtenstein, a country just to the east of Switzerland, nestled between Switzerland and Austria. Very neat little country. It's a little principality. It's German-speaking. Focus primarily on concrete tools. Their tools are nearly indestructible, but they're also very expensive. I think they're definitely a niche tool brand that if you're a heavy-duty contractor, it's hard to use anything other than Hilti. And if you're in that very specific trade space, Hilti is probably worth it for the money. But for everyone else, Probably not, but they're designed to be heavy duty and might even be the definition of heavy duty. And so I think it actually belongs up higher than it might otherwise, you might otherwise think, just because of their durability and their design. I know their price is a little bit ridiculous and out of line, but for certain tradesmen in very specific fields, it's going to be worth every penny that you pay for a Hilti tool, at least in my opinion. Definitely not for everybody, though. It's not a tool for the common man, but for certain individuals, absolutely. I think it belongs up higher on the list than maybe you might otherwise think. So I think we'll put that there. Let's take a look at another brand here. Let's look at Husky. Husky, the store brand at the Home Depot. Primarily hand tools and pneumatic tools and toolboxes. You can get a pretty good value out of Husky tools. Some of their toolboxes could be a little bit better designed. Their hand tools have got quite a good selection, and their warranty process is excellent. And I think because of their warranty process being well documented and excellent, and I think Lowe's and Craftsman could get there, but Husky just has a little bit of a history that's works in their favor, and maybe that's not fair, but I think I'm going to put Husky up here for now. Maybe Husky might belong a little bit lower, and if we need to make some adjustments later, we might do that. Let's go for Bostitch. So Bostitch, primarily known for pneumatic tools, staplers, nailers. They got some compressors. But to me, Bostitch has kind of turned into a zombie brand with Stanley Black & Decker, because they've gobbled up so many brands that we're now seeing them show up in Walmart. They've got a series of 20-volt cordless staplers and tools that really should have been released under the DeWalt branding. You can find those at Menards and a few other places. And to me, Stanley Bostitch is just a brand that doesn't belong anymore. And pretty much everything that's sold with the Bostitch brand can be found either as Stanley or DeWalt or some other brand in the Stanley Black & Decker portfolio. And to me, it's just really kind of a zombie brand that's lost its ways and probably should be headed towards the exit strategy. And so I'm going to knock them down to the F tier, because I just don't see there's any reason to buy a Bostitch tool unless it's just there and the price is right. That there's nothing compelling about the brand. Their hand tools, particularly their battery-powered tools, they're just zombies. They don't belong. There's no reason to have that many extra batteries and battery platforms in the market, and that could easily be gotten rid of. Let's go to Porter Cable. So Porter Cable used to be a very well-respected woodworking brand. Stanley Black & Decker gobbled them up because Porter Cable used to be partnered with Delta Machinery, and they used to make some outstanding tools. However, after Stanley Black & Decker took them over, they've kind of definitely knocked them back, and then now we've seen Stanley Black & Decker basically rebrand everything that was Porter Cable as Craftsman, and I've got no reason to believe that Porter Cable is going to be around much longer, or they're just going to be relegated basically as a zombie brand that's walking alive in discount stores like Walmart, or maybe Meijer or Target or something like that. I just see that's the long-term destiny for Porter Cable. It's sad. I own a number of Porter Cable tools. You remember Norm Abrams? He used to use Porter Cable tools from back in the day. But today, unfortunately, in 2019, they're just a zombie brand. But I think they belong just slightly higher than Bostitch. But they're still basically a zombie brand that's still alive somehow. But just seeing how everything's been transitioned over Craftsman, I think it's time to put them out of their misery as well. Let's take a look at Skill. So Skill's a brand. It was a very budget, low-end tool brand. It used to be owned by Bosch as their lower-end tool brand, but they got sold to Shervon, the same company that produces the Ego power tools. And they've come out with a new line of brushless tools under the Skill brand in both 12 and 20-volt classifications. They're very budget-friendly. There's been a handful of reviews. The only problem with them so far I see is just the lack of general availability outside of Amazon as a retail channel. But because Ego power tools have done so well, the folks behind the Skill brand now, I think, have a great chance to actually bring it up. And so I'm going to set them, they're kind of side by side with Works at the moment now, to be fair. But seeing where they can go, I think they definitely belong just slightly above Works. I think that's fair. There's a lot of potential there. I mean, if that potential is not realized, it could fall back. But since the Ego power tools have been so great, it's hard for me to see that Skill is not on an upward trajectory at the present. So let's look at its sister brand, Skill Saw, the famous for the worm drive saw that quote-unquote built America. The company that owns Skill Saw and Skill is not Bosch anymore. It's Shirvan, like I said before, which is a Chinese company. They've come out with a worm drive table saw, a worm drive miter saw. Some of the reviews on that worm drive miter saw have not been as stellar as it could be, but they're definitely headed in the right category. They're a little cost prohibitive, but they're intended to be very powerful tools for very specific applications. And that are just flat out unique, because who else has a worm drive table saw? And I think there's room for improvement with the brand, so I'm going to put it here. I think it remains to be seen where they're headed in the future. It's not for everyone, but we're starting to see worm drive saws from other brands and even cordless worm drive saws. So I'm not sure they belong any higher than this, but there's a lot of potential for where they could be headed down the road in the future. So let's go to Metabo. So I'm going to first talk about Metabo, the original Metabo, which is a German-based tool company. And they've got some pretty interesting tools in terms of their battery technology. They've got some pretty large grinders. Lowe's has actually had them available through their website and in select stores for a while. Maybe you've had a Lowe's near you that's had them in stock. I've never had a chance to actually hold them, but everything I've read about has been pretty positive for the price and what you get. I would say they probably belong somewhere in here. They're a pretty good, reputable brand with a long history. And I think that's more than fair. Now let's look at their sister brand, Metabo Hpt. Now I think immediately this gets knocked back. Metabo Hpt is the old green Hitachi tools. They've got a couple new interesting tools they've come out with basically a dual voltage system that's kind of mimicking what DeWalt's done with their Flex Volt system. They also have a power adapter. You can turn any of their HPT tools into a corded tool, which I think is incredible and about time. But they are very pricey for what you get. And the confusion in their branding at the moment, particularly because of that transition from Hitachi, I mean, maybe I'm crazy, but I suspect that we're going to see, with the need to separate that from the Metabo brand, that I'm expecting them to change names. And they've got a great potential, and I'm going to put them and knock them back a little bit into the D tier. I know they probably belong a little bit higher, but I think for now we're going to park them there. Now let's look at Klein tools. They're primarily electricians' tools, made in America for the most part. Now, I'm not sure if they actually belong on this list or not. I think they may barely meet the criteria. I'm not sure if they actually have a ratchet, but they've got quite the selection of tools. Generally reasonably priced, insulated screwdrivers. And if we talk to any electricians, a lot of them swear by their Klein tools. They're kind of the very definition of electricians' tools. Their cost isn't too bad. You can find them at the Home Depot. You can find them in retail channels. They're a very high-quality brand. And relatively budget friendly. So I think for that, I'm going to knock them up here slightly towards the top of the S tier, creeping in top of the A tier, creeping into the S tier. A lot of potential for what could be done with Klein tools to build on their positive branding. Let's take a look at Masterforce tools. So this is the house brand of Menards. I know Menards is a Midwest chain. They've got some excellent toolboxes. I've got one. I think it's actually for what you pay for, it's a very high quality tool. They've got their own line of cordless 20 volt tools. That's got quite a few selections, especially for a house brand. Some of them could be a little bit better. They've got outdoor power equipment now. They've got hand tools. So Masterforce was one of the last bastions of Made in America sockets and ratchets. Those have all now switched overseas to Asia. But their toolboxes and their value proposition with their power tools, it's hard for me not to actually put that up here towards the top. That if you've got a Menards near you, some of the Masterforce products, in terms of just on a value proposition of what you're getting and the quality that you get for it, certainly earns its way here towards the top of this list. Now let's take a look at Delta. So Delta used to be aligned with Porter Cable, based out of, I believe it was Jackson, Tennessee. Maybe I'm wrong on that. They've since split. Delta is now owned by a Taiwanese company. They've got a handful of table saws. They still have their famous fence system. They're pretty pricey for what you get, but they're not for everyone. But for what you get for the price, this is basically the way that a common man can get something similar if you choose the right Delta tool to a Powermatic, which we'll get to here in a moment. And so I think they belong certainly up here towards the top of the list for what you get. They've got some grinders. There's been a number of Delta products that have been rebranded as Cobalt in Lowe's. And I think they're doing some other contract manufacturing as well. But for the Delta branded products, they got some excellent thickness planers. If you can find them, their distribution channels are a little bit limited for actual Delta branded products, but they're quite excellent for what you get. And the price, I'd say it's fair. I think this is, the B tier is a fair place. So now let's talk about the gold standard, Powermatic. This is your premium woodworking tool. What Snap-on is to auto mechanics, Powermatic is to serious woodworkers. Some folks who want to put it all the way up the top. Yes, their tools are very outstanding. I'll certainly give them credit for that. Do they belong here at the top? I don't know. They do have some tools that you probably can't find elsewhere. They have the best table saws in the industry. But the price you're going to pay for them is going to be a premium. For certain individuals, they're going to be hard to beat. I think for most folks, you can get a similar quality out of a Delta, and on a per capita basis, and I don't know that that's a fair basis or not. You're going to knock them back a bit from maybe where they belong at the top. For some folks, they're definitely at the top and are irreplaceable. So let's take a look, and we're talking about table saws. Let's talk about SawStop. So SawStop has the blade retracting technology. They've got their hot dog test. If it comes in contact with the flesh, so immediately that should make you think that it belongs up here in this S tier in a class all to its own, just simply for saving fingers and protecting hands at table saws. They've had some lawsuits and they've had some issues where they basically caused Bosch to stop producing their blade technology or their finger saving technology. And their CEO has done some pretty shady processes, again, in my opinion. My editorial content here, again, editorial content. I think as a brand, they could definitely be doing better in terms of what they've done. Their products are remarkable for what they do. In terms of the corporate culture for what they've done, I think I'm going to knock them back for it because they could be behaving better as a brand. Okay, so now we've got 3 brands left. Let's go to Festool next. And so Festool is a premium woodworking brand. They're a German company. They are, to some extent, analogous to Powermatic in that they've got kind of the smaller tools that Powermatic doesn't produce, such as their miter saws. They've got a drill. They've got some pretty unique tools that fit a very niche market. They're very expensive. I think they're most famous for their domino tool for joinery, which in certain circumstances is unbeatable. Does Festool make a great product? Absolutely. They've got a great dust collector. Their accuracy is unbeatable. Their price is pretty high, but their tools are unique. And You know, maybe I'll regret this, but I think I'm going to have to put them somewhere up here towards the A tier. It's hard to say that they're not a quality tool company, but their prices are definitely high. But they're unique tools, and I think that's what sets them apart from Powermatic, is that many of the Festool tools are unique, and uniquely their design that you can tell from a distance. They've got their Sustainer concept, which was one of the first on the market of connected tool organizers, and so their innovation really pushes them forward, and they're maybe a great model for what an innovative tool company can be. And so then this leaves the next one. Let's go to Makita. And so Makita, I feel like, does not get nearly as much love in the U.S. market as it does in other parts of the world. Makita has their 18-volt platform. They've had one of the largest selections of 18-volt tools, and they've been very committed to that line for a long time. They've got outdoor power equipment, and they've got a lot more than what you can actually find in stores at, say, Home Depot, for example. And for what you get for the money and the quality, I'm actually going to put them up here in the S tier very solidly. And one of the big reasons for that is one of my personal experiences with them. My first cordless drill was a 9.6 volt drill that was bought back in, I don't know, probably about 92 or 93, give or take, maybe a little bit before that. And that thing lasted every bit of 25 years and probably still could be going. But, you know, the battery just kind of lost its life. And that was one incredible cordless drill that Makita made. That thing was a tank. And their other tools are all quality. There's a little bit of a price premium on them. They don't get near the amount of love as Milwaukee or some of the other brands. But I think part of that is that Makita, you know, doesn't give away free tools to YouTubers like some of these other companies do. And so they miss out on some of that YouTube promotion. But in terms of a quality power tool and for the price and a system, they've got quite a bit. They even have a cooling jacket. That's a pretty unique product. I know, to be fair, they did have a few knocks a while back in regard to their Miss Makita program. They've dealt with that, I think, and we'll give them a pass on that at the moment. I think they've dealt with that. And so finally, that brings us to probably the most controversial brand on this list at all, Harbor Freight. Does Harbor Freight belong up here? If we talk solely about value, absolutely. Harbor Freight provides an unbeatable value on tools. Or at least they used to. They're bringing out newer tools, such as their Bauer or their Hercules brand, that are trying to go head-to-head with DeWalt for nearly the same price or just slightly less than it, but with a better warranty. And I think Harbor Freight has really benefited from the decline of Sears in terms of the ubiquity of stores, in terms of warranty exchange process, where when I gave Husky quite a bit of points for warranty exchange, I think Harbor Freight can go tooth and nail with them for warranty claim purposes. Harbor Freight also has some baggage with them with some of their very, very low quality poor tools that they've got, as well as their store experience. Some of their store experiences are just horrendous. Everyone knows about that distinctive store smell at Harbor Freight. You just can't get that out of your nose once you've had it and you've been in there for a bit. And lately they've been trying to move up market with their more premium brands. They're trying to roll out their Icon brand of tools and move up market. And I think they're trying to shed some of their just bottom of the barrel feeding tools. But that's what made them as a company. And so I think they find themselves in a very awkward predicament. If they move themselves too up market, some of the tradesmen that have swore them off and felt embarrassed by them may not touch them. And they may price themselves away from their bread and butter customers that have supported them for years. So I think they've got a really interesting predicament they find themselves in corporately wise. I understand where they're trying to go. And they're trying to live in the best of both worlds. You get high quality tools for a low price. But there's other tools they've got that are just absolute junk. But they're good for a one-time use. And for some folks, that's absolutely okay. That you only need it once. And you don't need to pay for it, a tool that's going to last a lifetime, designed to do the job day in, day out. But you do have to be able to figure out which tools are the gems and which ones are the junk. And for that, I think I'm going to put them right here between the B and the C category or tier. And let's take a step back and look at what we've got here on our tier list. And let's see if this makes sense. At the very bottom of the list, we got Bostitch and Porter cable. Moving up the list here, we got Matco. I think all of that seems pretty reasonable. We've got Cobalt behind Craftsman. We've got Works. Here, I think this, I mean, to me, when I'm looking at this, I think the one that stands out to me is Powermatic. I knocked them quite a bit on price. They're definitely the quality that belongs them up. I know I put Hilti up because of the quality and the price, but they're not priced nearly as crazy as Powermatic is. And so I think that's fair, although maybe they deserve to be inched up a little bit higher if you're in the right trade. Could there be an argument that Mac should go back a little bit farther with some brand confusion? Maybe. Is Husky a little bit too high on the list? Possibly. I could see where Husky might need to come down and live a little bit lower on the list. Possibly. I could possibly be sold on that. I think some of these are coming up and down, but I feel pretty comfortable with this list. So if you disagree with it or have other thoughts, put in the comments below, and we can talk about it down there. Please be civil. I know some people are just complete fanboys and fangirls for some of these brands, and this is just my editorial opinion. So I thought I'd do this for some fun this weekend, and have a great day. Bye.